Well, hello, Trina, Tabitha, and we have had yet another technology fail. So I don't have any idea what's going on. I apologize. I've been on two other phone calls or Google Hangout calls this week alone, and I don't know if it's Google or what, but it was cutting out like crazy, and it wasn't just on my end; it was on the other students' end. As their final presentations for their graduate program, and I felt super bad, so I don't know what's happening. So what I'm going to do today is just post a video with some responses to your two questions, which were great questions. So thank you for that. I'll also have your papers back to you here shortly. Hey, this has been a semester, and part of me wonders if perhaps this is by God's design that, well, I shouldn't wonder. I know that God is in the mix of all these things. But perhaps this is the type of semester with a little bit more autonomy and freedom for maybe even you to be kind of on your own to be more successful and glean what you need and want out of this class. So, interestingly enough, while we have two students in this section, I have another one coming up here on May 8th, and it's full at 20. And they actually opened up two additional sections. So for some reason we had no students in spring, or at least only two, and then in the summer it looks like we're going to have, I don't know how many, 40 or something like that. So interesting times. I know that your schedule kind of flows and fluctuates with the different semesters, so perhaps the summer semester is a better option for this class. But for you and for what we're doing, I think it's been just fine. It's allowed you to get the learning, get the books, get the conversation, get the content. I've gotten to know you, which has been a real joy, and we have gotten some great, I think, learning in this time together. So what I really appreciate is your thoughtfulness and your questions. I know that, even Tabitha, your question was really just a simple one, so I'd like to hear your take on the treatment plan. And then Tarina, your response with talking about your nephew. So I want to talk about some of these things. There's elements, especially Tarina, with regard to your question, that I don't know that I can speak to entirely, given that there's other elements involved. But I will speak to you from my experiences. In fact, I just entered into a new contract with a client this week. I've mentioned before, my work in career coaching and counseling is really just on a part-time basis, very, very part-time, and that's really all that I can kind of handle with my schedule, given the fact that I am working full-time, I'm teaching a full load, and so forth. But what it allows for me to do, much like I'm sure many of your other instructors that you've taken courses from in this program, is it allows me to keep my hands, or I guess my hands in this field to speak not from a theoretical understanding, but really from an actual practical application. Like I'm doing literally doing the work that we're talking about, and I think that's all the more valuable. I don't think it happens a whole lot, especially at the graduate level when we're teaching more adult learners like yourselves. But the saying has been for years, those who can't do, teach. And what I've always appreciated in the fields that I have worked is that those that are teaching are those that have either done and in a previous career, or those that are doing as they currently teach the very things. And I think that a simultaneous, almost concurrent doing and teaching is the best overall experience, especially for the life of the student. So I'm grateful that I have some opportunities to do this work, even if it is on somewhat of a part-time basis. And if I had time, I could tell you more. There's lots of different resources that I will mention to you, things that if you want to explore more of this, things that you could do to explore career counseling, career coaching as a more viable option. And I think what you'll find too is that the approach to this class with the reading, the assignments, the questions, this will be, especially some of the textbooks with your vocation and calling, reading, and assignment, you will find that if you were to go elsewhere for a program or a course like this, you would find that not many, maybe not any other courses would be like this one. And I hope that has been something that's been beneficial to you, and you find has been kind of a nice, refreshing approach, because you're getting the career development theory, you're getting the techniques, you're getting more of the psychological component. But then as part of that, we're really spending time looking at this vocation and calling. And what I'm bringing to that whole conversation as well is this idea of coaching, which we don't hear a lot about coaching. And I kind of, I would say that's kind of that's a bummer, really, if I'm going to be quite frank with you. So I wish that we would spend more time talking about coaching. So we are at the tail end of Unit 7, and so you will remember, if you're at that reading yet, in Career Counseling for Adults, so Chapter 16, there is a very brief mention, and I was actually quite pleased to see that they at least made some mention of this content, but there's a very brief mention, probably maybe no more than a page and a half max, where there is discussion about career coaching. So, and that, frankly, that makes me, I can't say sad, like I'm not losing sleep over it, I'm not in tears, but I do wish that they would spend some more time on that. I wish that they would spend some more time talking about vocation and calling. I wish they would spend more time talking about career and vocational identity, because I think those are some of the largest components that aren't discussed. And this idea of coaching being my approach is really this, I'm evoking, I met with a client just this week and I said, here's how I'm going to do this. I'm not going to tell you what you should do. I'm not going to tell you what you need to do. But what I am going to do is make suggestions of things that you could do, but that's all going to come out of the fact that I'm asking you questions. Because I think in many ways the answers that we're looking for are not answers that I can give you, they're answers that you have to come to by way of really digging deep and looking inside of yourself. And I have this, I showed this slide, and I'm not this like, the answer is inside of you. That's not the approach. Like, we're not going to get all, like that. But I think that a lot of times we do have this internal mechanism that says this is the answer. And there's oftentimes much more power in the asking of questions than there is in the dissemination of answers. Okay, so that's the approach that I take. I've got about 8 minutes left in this video, so what I want to do is really briefly talk to you about so one of the questions that was asked was I'd like to hear your take on treatment plans. Okay, so as with any plan, I think that you have to have some flexibility. If we say this is the plan and we're going to follow it to a T, I think then sometimes that gets us into trouble, okay? So even, I think, Tarina, to your question, talking about your nephew who's on an IEP, we have these plans, right? So we think about these things, this is how we're going to be successful. And I think that having a plan is good, but I think having a plan is only good to an extent if we are willing to flex on that plan itself. Okay, so I tell my clients, I say, here's what we're going to do. In fact, one of the things I'll send to you is I'm going to send you an example. I'll share with you a PDF version of a contract that I use. Okay, I'll take names and all the different information off of that, but I'll send you an example of a contract that I use. And one of the things that I include in there is the possible assessments and interventions that we might use. Not a guarantee that we will, but I include pricing and some of it is the actual assessment itself, and then some of it is the interpretation, so the work that goes into the assessment. So I'm going to come up with probably more loose, so I'll hold it kind of loosely, right? So it's kind of not loosey-goosey, but loose in that here's an idea that I think we could pursue, but let's make sure that we are doing the right thing. So I think when you look at, Chapter 3, and they talk about, I'm looking at the book here, the treatment plans in career counseling. I like the way that they lay it out, right? So you'll use portions of this for your final assignment. So the intake assessment, I did that just this past week with my client this week for the first time we met. The case conceptualization, so what are the big problems? One of the things that I ask the client in that intake is I say, what is the problem according to you? So tell me what you think the problem is, okay? And I don't oftentimes mean problem in like the most dark and dreary ways, but just why are we here? What are we? And oftentimes that's already been discussed in a phone call or multiple emails back and forth. But I want to hear it from them. I want to ask the question out loud in person, or if we're on the phone, if we're doing telecounseling or coaching, which I haven't yet done, but I'll tell you about some other resources that you may want to consider as we get closer to the end of the semester. So what's the issue? What's the problem? And they tell me. And then I say, so now what's the solution in your mind? Oh. And they give me their answer, and I say, well, why do you think that's the solution? It's like designers. So designers, they identify problems, they come up with solutions. They identify problems, they come up with solutions, right? So I'm actually taking a design class right now, and the design that the instructor is using as the example is what they're talking about is they want me to think about an ice cream scoop. Okay, so the ice cream scoop, I've got a carton of ice cream. So let's say this is ice cream. It's not ice cream, but let's say this was ice cream, and the ice cream inside of the ice cream carton is obviously frozen. So I could use a regular old spoon, but what happens to the regular old spoon? The regular old spoon is going to go into the ice cream, and it's going to get stuck, or it's going to bend, and I'm not going to be as effective in getting the ice cream out. So he goes through this iterative process of how they have developed better designs to meet the needs of the consumer to get the ice cream out, which has then resulted, of course, into an ice cream scoop. We have to be very intentional to ask the right questions to get the actual problem so we can come up with actual solutions that will meet the needs of the actual problem. And I think that if we do this career treatment plan, if we do it well and we do it right, then we can get at that. So I like this. I like the goal development. I like the constructing objectives. I like treatment plans. But what I would say is I think that they need to be done in a way where we're holding them loosely and we're allowing for freedom. And I understand that sometimes people want very succinct, concise, parametered, I want walls, I want specifics, give me exactly what we're going to do. And I will never give you exactly what we're going to do because I don't think it serves you or the coach or the counselor. I don't think it serves us well. So what it does, it puts more work on me to make sure that I know I'm more well-rounded, I'm more well-read, I'm more well-understood in all of these different areas so that I can look at all of these different options and say, I think we should consider blah, 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 or this or that, and if that doesn't work, then let's consider this, which is why reading this textbook by Anderson and Vandehee is so vital because you get all of these theories and techniques, and then you get to choose the ones that you find to be most valuable and important. Okay, so that's what I would say about treatment plans. I like them, but hold them loosely. So now, Trina, your question, your nephew who is really struggling, finding work, and two things, so lack of skills and lack of common sense. What would you suggest or what guidance would you give to clients like this? So there's the background. Man, there's a lot here. So one of the things that I put in this contract is if you are currently in counseling or seeing a therapist, I make the client that's working with me sign their name to say, I promise that I either have talked to my counselor or I will talk to my counselor and let them know that I'm in process with career coaching, with career counseling. I think that some of the things that we're looking at, obviously from a diagnostic standpoint, if there is a diagnosed case of ADHD from the young age, is there still ramifications that have stayed with this individual to today? If so, obviously that is well outside the parameters that I am able to dabble in. I can talk about that, but that's, here again, I'm here to help you find work. So one of the things that you do, I think this is where you kind of mix career coaching or counseling with almost some life skill coaching and counseling. You do interviewing skills. You look at the kind of interaction. How do we communicate with folks? Where you mix. So if the individual is willing to and able to engage in a coaching counseling relationship like that, I think you start to work on some of those things. And I think you start small, right? So start small, like let's work at this one kind of roadblock, this one issue in life, and let's get past that. And maybe that's not the role of the career coach, because I think that sometimes from an ethical standpoint, have to say, I would love to help you, but I think there's some other elements here that need to be dealt with first, okay? Or maybe concurrently. But what I don't ever want to do is to get into hot water or get into a sticky situation where I am attempting to do something that is not my job, okay? I am trained and equipped to do career coaching and counseling. I am not trained and equipped to do other areas. And I think sometimes the most refreshing thing that we can do with our friendships, our relationships, in our working situation, and fill in the blank, is to use those words, I'm not sure, or I don't know, or I'm sorry, I can't help you. But the most important thing is the follow-up. But I'll find out who can, and I will point you in that direction. We want to be the second to last stop that person will ever have to make. Hope that's helpful. See you online.